One Maine educator has spent her career touching the lives of students of all ages, from kindergartners to postgrads. Brittany McHatton takes a closer look at the work she's doing to build a stronger community.
Another glass ceiling bit the dust earlier this year when Coy-Ogan was named the new president of Husson University. Coy-Ogan became the first female president in Husson's 125-year history when she officially assumed the role last month. For the Maine native, personal success is not enough. It's now about guiding Husson into the future and lifting up the next generation of history makers who will follow in her footsteps. Coy-Ogan is a lifelong educator. Becoming the 7th president at Husson University is a role she's prepared her whole life for. So it's no surprise she hit the ground running with one of the first orders of business, developing a 5-year strategic and financial plan.
I've always been so impressed with all of the employees that work here. The talent of the faculty and staff and their commitment to student success is so admirable. So the opportunity to be able to bring that together and help Husson prepare for 2030 as we think ahead, and how the university will continue to evolve and continue to differentiate ourselves in the higher education marketplace.
Coy-Ogan has been at Husson for nearly 2 decades, first serving as the dean of the School of Education and quickly rising to provost. With a deep understanding of where the university has been, the Board of Trustees tasked her with leading it into the future.
Post-COVID, students are looking for increased flexibility, and Husson's portfolio of focusing on professional careers really resonates with a lot of students. It provides them wonderful opportunities for internships throughout their educational experience that strengthens their preparation for the careers of their choice. We have a robust offering of a variety of new portfolios this last year, opening 5 new degree programs, and many of those are extremely popular, from our animal care to our new degree in nutrition online.
Coy-Ogan is the proud daughter of Dover Foxcroft. Her connection to the community provides a source of inspiration for her work.
I think Maine has had a tremendously quality education for its K-12 students as well as higher education opportunities. And so while I went away and studied at Boston University and Johns Hopkins, the ability to return to Maine and use those educational experiences to enhance and enrich opportunities for other Maine students and families has been a tremendously rewarding professional opportunity.
She says she's committed to being a mentor for others, whether helping students individually or shepherding Husson University forward on the whole. She hopes to leave a path of progress in her wake. That means reaching students where they are and aiming to show them their potential on College Circle in Bangor.
62% of our students come from Maine, but 90% of them come from New England. And so to be able to move beyond that, especially given the demographic decline of Maine and the rest of New England, is really important to Husson's future.
Well, Sierra, that strategic plan is in the works, and we might even get a first draft here in the coming months.